Hi, thanks for joining me. Today I'm going to talk about a book I just finished, and the book is called The Labyrinth of Solitude. This book is written by Octavio Paz. He's a Mexican author, and he won the Nobel Prize for Literature. So what he does in this book is a very difficult thing because he defines the Mexican's place in the world, the Mexican's identity, and how the Mexican thinks of himself. So the first 200 pages are the Labyrinth of Solitude, and then there are some other shorter books that follow, adding another 200 pages to this publication. So the Labyrinth of Solitude was published in 1961. As he begins, as I started, I immediately liked the writing, and so much that I thought, wow, if I was going to be a writer, I'd want to write like Octavio Paz. It's really nice. He's a very clear thinker. He's kind of a lot of creative thinking, a lot of new ideas that I hadn't thought of. You know, I live in a state that borders Mexico, and so while I have always lived in a community with Mexicans, I hadn't thought much about their culture and their identity, and so I was really kind of felt ashamed that I hadn't explored this topic earlier in my life, because I think it is really important for someone who lives in a state that borders Mexico that they should know about this Mexicans. He immediately goes into some things about the Mexican identity, and one of the things is he talks about the Mexican is not so confident in themselves, and so they can hide behind a mask. And then when the event called the fiesta is very important to their society, and in my town they have a fiesta every year, and at this time of year the Mexican can kind of be their real selves. Society consumes with itself during the fiesta. Its members return to original chaos and freedom. Social structures break down and new relationships, unexpected rules, capricious hierarchies are created. In the general disorder, everybody forgets himself and enters to otherwise forbidden situations and places. The bounds between audience and actors, officials and servants are erased. Everybody takes part in fiesta. Everybody is caught up in its whirlwind. Whatever its mood, its character, its meaning, the fiesta is participation, and this trait distinguishes it from other ceremonies and social phenomena. Life and death, joy, sorrow, music, and the mere noise are united, not to recreate or recognize themselves, but to swallow each other up. There's nothing so joyous as a Mexican fiesta, and there is also nothing so sorrowful. Fiesta night is also the night of mourning. He goes on to talk about death and how important death is. Death is a mirror which reflects the vain gesticulation of living, the whole motley confusion of acts, omissions, regrets, and hopes, which in their life of each one of us finds in death, not meaning or explanation, but an end. The Mexican does not want to or does not dare to be himself. Then he talks about the macho quality of Mexicans, and the only thing of value is manliness, personal strength, a capacity for imposing oneself on others. Macho power almost always reveals itself as a capacity for wounding, humiliating, and annihilating. He is power isolated in its own potency, without relationship or compromise with the outside world. He's pure in communication, a solitude that devours itself and everything it touches. He talks about how the compares the origination of Mexico to America, and how Mexico had the indigenous Indians, the Mayas, the Aztecs, and the other types of Indians, and they had a very strong civilization. But in their civilization, there was some brutality. Like, for example, they did the human sacrifice, and then their prophets foresaw the new leader coming in, and that's when Cortez arrived. And so they kind of welcomed him at first, and then Cortez came in and brought in his Spanish heritage, and he was cruel. So they have a cruel past, but then so they want to acknowledge their past, and they also have a Spanish heritage, but they want to be something new. They want to be a Mexican, whereas Americans rebelled against their European forefathers. The Mexicans were forced to embrace the Spanish colonization of Mexico. The Mexican society is basically conservative, and that has to do with the Spanish society, which is considered conservative. For example, Spain never had a revolution like the French Revolution. The indigenous Indians kind of had a conservative society. So he talks about how that conservatism holds Mexico back, and so and every once in a while the peasants and the poor people have to collectively oppose the leaders. And that's the only way to advance, is to overthrow the leadership. Whereas a country like America, the constant change is part of the society, the attrition of the old people and the old ideas, and new ideas come up. The American society is much more dynamic, and the Mexican society is more static. We have never succeeded in creating a form that would express our individuality. As the result, Mexicanism has never been identified with any specific form or tendency. It has always veered from one universal project to another, all of them foreign to our nature, and all of them useless in our present crisis. Mexicanism is a way of not being ourselves, a way of life that is not our own. Sometimes it is a mask, sometimes it's sudden determination to find ourselves, to gash open our breasts in order to release our true and most secret voices. A Mexican philosophy would have to take into account not only the ambiguity of our tradition, but also that of our will to be, which demands recognition of our individuality, but only if that recognition is joined with a universal solution to our problems. So he's very self-aware. He's very brutally honest about the Mexican identity. The basic theme is in the title. He feels that the Mexican lives in solitude, and he's in a labyrinth of solitude, and that's what his life is. Now, of course, this is written in 1961, and I found it very valuable. I am interested in knowing how contemporary Mexicans feel. Then he moves on to the next section of the other Mexico. This has to do with politics and how this affects Mexico. He talks about the president and how it's sacrilege to criticize the policies. He talks about the Virgin Guadalupe and how that's worship of virginity. He comes into a chapter on Mexico and the United States, how they feel the United States has mistreated them, taken advantage of them. But he also notes how the American writers and literature have tried to search for the American spirit and demonstrate with their characters and their stories the American spirit, where the Mexicans have not done that as much. So the Americans are establishing their own personality, and the Mexicans should do that. The United States, because of its origin and its intellectual and political history, is a society oriented toward the future. The extraordinary spatial mobility of America, a nation constantly on the move, has often been pointed out. In the realm of beliefs and mental attitudes, mobility in time corresponds to physical and geographical displacement. The American lives on the very edge of the now, always ready to leap toward the future. The country's foundations are in the future, not in the past. Mexico's orientation, as it has been seen, was just the opposite. First came the rejection of criticism, and with it rejection of the notion of change. Its ideal is to conserve the image of divine immutability. Second, it has a plurality of past, all present and at war with every Mexican soul. Cortez and Montezuma are still alive in Mexico. At the time of that great crisis, the Mexican Revolution, the most radical faction, that of Zapata and his peasants, proposed not new forms of social organization, but a return to communal ownership of land. The rebelling peasants were asking for the devolution of the land. That is, they wanted to go back to pre-Columbian form of ownership which had been respected by the Spaniards. The image of the revolutionaries instinctively made for themselves for a golden age lay in the remotest past. Utopia for them was not in construction of the future, but a return to the source, to the beginning. So it closes out at about page 398, and it's a very good book. I recommend it to everybody, so thanks for watching.